Hey friends, and welcome to the Durango Vineyard. I'm so glad you joined us for this video sermon. And so this week, we're continuing with this series on Awake My Soul. Here's the pre-assumption. That is that Jesus wants life for us. And what's life translate into? That's what we're after. We want the experience of freedom, of joy, of hope, of love. And with that, what we're doing in this series is addressing the subjects that might actually keep us from experiencing a woke soul, if you will. This week, we're going to talk about our pain, our issues, our crosses is what we're going to call them today. And we're going to talk about them from the perspective of how do we find a woken life or a fullness of life amidst all the pain and the suffering and the junk that we bring to the table. I can remember shortly after choosing to follow Jesus, I was searching the scriptures for anything that would help me with my own stuff. Well, if you find yourself in that position at all, this week is just for you. Just a quick note about the speaker. Paul is going to be sharing with us, Paul Davernak. He's an elder at the Vineyard, and he's become just a dear friend of mine. And if there's anything that I can tell you about Paul, it's that he knows how to live in the tension of pain and yet still seek joy in the middle of it. He's somebody that I would trust with anything in my life. And he's someone who has trusted me with some of his own pain as well. So all that's to say, you're in good hands this week. Sit back and go on this journey with us into our pain.
On October 24th, back in 1997, there was a bizarre storm with 120-mile-an-hour winds that flattened 30 square miles of trees up in the Mount Zirkle Wilderness area in northern Colorado, north of Steamboat Springs. They call it the Mount Zirkle Blowdown, and it's the largest such blowdown that's ever been recorded in the Rocky Mountains. I know this area well. I've hiked it over the last 50 years. I've skied many of the backcountry peaks, some of them multiple times. My goodness, the destruction, the death, the devastation, the absolute clogging of trails and cross-country routes with literally millions of tumbled and tangled down trees. A similar event happened in northern Minnesota on July 4th, 1999, up in canoe country, and there was this 30-minute frenzy of hurricane-force winds that flattened over 20 million trees in the Boundary Waters. In both of these blowdowns, if you went back, even the following summer, there was new life everywhere. There were flowers, baby birch trees, aspen, baby pine trees, literally everywhere. Nature makes it clear that what seems like absolute death and destruction is actually the seedbed for brand new life. And if you go back into the Zirkles today, it's clear that wholeness is not about perfection. Wholeness means embracing brokenness as an integral part of life. There's beauty in life everywhere in the Zirkles. There are 23-year-old lodgepole pine literally everywhere, but there is still evidence of the blowdown. Isaiah 61 verse 1 says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted and to proclaim freedom for the captives." You know, when Jesus started in his public life, when he started speaking in front of people, he could have quoted any one of hundreds of Old Testament scriptures, but that's the one that he picked. And then he applied it to himself, saying that binding up the brokenhearted and setting us free was actually his mission. Check out Luke 4, verse 18. Binding up our broken hearts, making them whole again. That's the good news in a nutshell, isn't it? I want to suggest to you today that wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness is not magically turning back time and erasing the brokenness as if it had never happened. Wholeness actually means embracing and including brokenness as an integral part of our lives, and then watching new life spring out of the brokenness. New life, out of what you thought was just death and devastation. I think that we have all heard this puzzling statement from Jesus. It's in Mark 8, verse 34, but it's also in Luke 9. It's also in Matthew chapter 16. They all say the same thing. Jesus says, "If anyone would follow me, you must deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me." Now, I'm not going to talk about denying ourselves today. That's for another person or for another time. But I do want to talk about taking up our crosses today. Jesus seems to suggest that it's absolutely essential if we're going to follow him and live in his kingdom. But what on earth does he mean? I've been thinking about this over and over again for the past year or so, and I'm finally finding a profound sense of life in what it means to take up my cross. Now, nobody wants a cross. You'd really have to be a sick masochist to go looking for a cross that you didn't have to pick up, if you could just as easily pick up a mantle of joy or contentment or fulfillment. You and I were designed for life. We were designed for wholeheartedness. I spent my life pursuing adventure and excitement, meaning and purpose. And I, for one, do not want any cross. I don't want any burden with splinters all over it that I could possibly get rid of, be healed of, or throw off in any other possible way. Friends, please hear me. You do not have to go looking for a cross. Notice that Jesus says to pick up your cross. You already have it. Your cross is uniquely yours. My cross is uniquely mine. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Others of us are going to spend years denying the existence of any cross until we finally crash and burn, and we finally see that the cross has been there the whole time, and we're finally forced to deal with it. At that point, it can become a life or death issue. Your cross is the load that weighs you down. Your cross is the stuff that feels impossible to carry. It may have something to do with trauma that was inflicted on you or somebody that you love. It may have something to do with bad things that you've inflicted on somebody else. It may have something to do with an abusive father or mother or uncle or sister or girlfriend or boyfriend. It may have something to do with deep betrayal in your life. Your cross might have something to do with how your personality constricts you and squeezes you down, how your genes limit you and keep you from living the life that you dream of. Your cross might have something to do with truly innocent mistakes or oversights that somehow spiraled into something really bad. It may have something to do with missed opportunities, with regrets. Your cross may have something to do with an addiction or a chronic medical condition or even a form of mental illness. You know, little kids just are who they are. As we get older, though, we learn how to navigate in a tough world, in a challenging world. Some of us learn how to hold our cards really close to our vests. We learn not to wear our hearts on our sleeves. We gradually put on armor, piece by piece by piece, to keep from getting hurt. And we learn to put on masks so that other people can't see exactly who we are. We may even learn to deny that we even have a cross, that it even exists. You and I don't want to be broken, but we are. And I think that you and I are really our own worst enemies when we deny this. And let me just say, welcome to the human race. Welcome to the race of broken people. Life can be beautiful, but it is undeniably hard, sometimes crushingly hard. You know, I think the Buddhists get it right when they say that life is suffering. But I think they get it wrong when they suggest that life is only suffering, and that the key to avoiding suffering is not to let yourself care too much about anything. Because I believe that we are born for life, we're born for joy, we're born for meaning, we're born for desire. But there is so much that gets in our way. There is an undeniable tragic sense of life. And I think that American Christianity has sometimes distorted things terribly by confusing the Christian walk with the idea of progress. that somehow the graph line always goes up and to the right. I just don't find that that's how it works. Look at the natural world. Look at the suffering that actually seems to be necessary on our planet. Just look at the changing of the seasons. Many of you grieve every fall when it starts getting cold, the growing season's over, and the snow starts to fall. Or look at predators and prey. The way that things work out there. Mountain lions eat deer because deer are their food source. That's great for the mountain lion, but if you're the deer, that's a tough fact of life. Or look at winter kill, where a deer or elk population can be decimated. Sometimes 80 or 90% of the population can die because of extreme cold and unusually heavy snows. Some necessary suffering seems to be the price of life at all on our planet. Those of you who have pain in your thumbs or your hands or your elbows or your knees or your back, you know what I'm talking about. Growing old is not for sissies. Growing old gracefully requires immense courage, especially in the face of pain. Again, I want to say that life is beautiful, but it is undeniably hard. And again, we are our own worst enemies when we deny this. What is your cross like? What in your life or your history would you pay almost any price to be rid of? What in your life would you give anything if it could just be different? Your cross might feel like your shadow, the parts of your life that you refuse to see, the parts that you definitely don't want other people to see. You may not even be aware of your own shadow, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. Your journey is your journey. It's unique. My journey is mine, not somebody else's. But I do know, however, that our crosses feel like they are beyond us. They are beyond our ability to magically make them disappear or go away or get better. And sometimes they are so hard to carry. Now for the good news. Those of us who have crashed and burned in our lives, who are well acquainted with the bottom, and who have come out the other side. We know about our crosses, but we also know about resurrection. It's like extravagant new life after the Mount Zirkle blowdown, but it's life that includes everything, including the down timber. Sin, failure, coming to the very end of your rope are actually the raw materials of redemption. Why do so many religious people insist on some crazy ideal of order and perfection, which is never true for anyone, frankly? I love this quote from Lady Julian of Norwich when she said, "First there is the fall, then we recover from the fall, and both are the mercy of God." I'm going to say that again. First there is the fall, then we recover from the fall, and both are the mercy of God. Resurrection is not woundedness denied. Resurrection is not woundedness forgotten. It is not total healing. Resurrection is woundedness transformed. Following Jesus is quite literally the way of the wound. It's a miracle to acknowledge all my junk, to lay my cross out in the open, and to realize that I can pick it up and I can follow Jesus with it. I do not have to get rid of it. I do not have to fix it in order to get him to walk with me. This is profound for me. This changes everything. And I believe that this is what it means to take up my cross and follow Jesus. Our crosses don't keep us from God. Our crosses lead us to God. Our crosses can help us see that God is already here. He's already in the midst of my situation. He's already at work, even before anything changes to my eye. It is a miracle to recognize that your pain, the devastation that you thought was hopeless and irredeemable, can actually become the conduit through which you connect with others and have a profound influence for good in their life. It is a miracle when your cross, when your tender and raw history is actually the instrument that can allow someone else to get a glimpse of hope for themselves in the middle of the darkness that they're walking in. Your cross can be the pathway to new life, life that never would have happened without it. Now, we believe that Jesus' cross was the most powerful weapon of all time. Isn't that the basis of our faith? I would suggest that your personal cross can also become a powerful weapon for the kingdom. Olivia Newton-John, who was a famous singer back in the 70s and 80s, had a multitude of number one hits, has struggled with breast cancer and recurrent breast cancer for over 20 years. And she has said openly on multiple times that she is thankful for her cancer because it taught her to live in the moment. It actually taught her compassion. I come back to the serenity prayer again. God, please grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Recognizing and accepting my legitimate cross helps me to be fully human, and it makes me willing and eager to have God shape me and to experience His grace, which is all around me right now. Our crosses bring us to reality. They bring us to the present, which quite frankly is the only place that life happens. And it's the only place in the entire universe where God's grace can actually touch you and me. Our crosses can make us gentle and kind. They can turn us into the sort of people that other people want to be around. Our crosses can connect us with our hearts, and they can actually help us feel in our bones how precious we are. I cannot connect with someone else's heart if I can't feel my own. Again, I don't want to carry any unnecessary cross. I want to be healed of everything that I can possibly be healed of. The goal is always life. It's always resurrection. But the cross that remains, the pain that is legitimately mine, I want to take it up and carry it and follow Jesus with it. Scars are not something to be ashamed of. After Jesus' death and resurrection, when He appeared to all kinds of people and His friends, did He hide His scars? No. In fact, He showed His friends the scars in His wrists, in His ankles, in His side. Your wounds, your scars, my wounds and my scars are precious to Jesus. We give Jesus ultimate praise and honor for His cross and what it means, do we not? I believe that there are elements of courage and honor when you and I take up our crosses and follow Jesus too. About 13 years ago, we were on a 6-day river trip with 2 other families in Utah through Desolation and Gray Canyons. It was in the middle of the trip, maybe day 3 or 4. We were at camp one evening. It was still light out. And 2 of the boys in another family were throwing sand at each other. It started as play, and it wound up as something a little bit more serious than that. And the younger boy, Levi, who was maybe 6 at that time, got the worst end of the deal, and he ended up with his eyes just absolutely chock full of sand. He was crying and he was screaming, and we realized as we listened that he was screaming something over and over, and we finally realized he was yelling, "I wish I was somebody else right now. I wish I was somebody else right now." I thought about that over and over again through the years, usually to laugh, but sometimes to recognize that that little boy was saying something truly profound. Just a short word about other people's crosses. Sometimes their situation looks so much better than our own. Sometimes we just wish that we could trade in our crosses for what we think are theirs. But I just want to say, be careful what you wish for, because we usually have absolutely no idea of the depths of their stories. And I think of one of my favorite quotes of all time by this guy named Philo of Alexandria. He lived in the 1st century after Christ. This is what he said: "Be kind. Everyone you meet is facing a great battle. Be tender with the people in your life, the people that you love. It's a terrible thing to be loved only for your potential. It's a terrible thing to grant your love only when people meet your expectations. And I'm learning that an expectation is just a resentment waiting to happen. Friends, there has never been a time when you and I were not surrounded by God's love. We were designed in love, we were conceived in love, we were born in love, and we live in love. There will never be a time in the future where God's love is too small for you or too small for me. He loves us right now, crosses and all. And I wonder if He loves us even more so because of our crosses. I know that I would like to love people like that. Accepting my cross, picking it up, and following Jesus helps me make sense out of a lot of other scriptures. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 10, when I am weak, then I'm strong. Or the verse before it, His grace is sufficient for me because His power is made perfect in my weakness. And my favorite of all time, Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, basically all of you who have crosses, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Jesus seems to imply that whatever heavy load you and I are carrying, that He will at minimum help us carry it. In fact, I think that He's even suggesting that we can trade our impossible burdens for His yoke, which is much easier to carry. I have to say that there is deep mystery here for me, and I don't fully understand this, but I do know that I want it. I want it for myself. God values you and me for who we are, not for what we do. And who we are right now in this moment is enough. You and I need honest insight into what is true and what is life-giving, broken parts and all, crosses and all. Your cross, my cross, can make us into broken-hearted people, but in a good way, with hearts that are broken open, not broken apart. A heart that is broken open becomes a beautiful and a welcoming place where deep and painful experiences somehow are transformed into the gold of wisdom and compassion and love. Friends, you and I, right now, in this moment, and in all the moments to come, you and I are accepted. We are loved. We are forgiven. Go in peace. Three questions for discussion or for consideration. This first one is pretty personal, and if you're not quite at the place where you feel able to do this with other people, I'd suggest maybe sit down with a journal. First question, what are the crosses that you carry in your life? Have you been through an experience of resurrection where new life has arisen out of a place that you thought would be dead forever? How can you and I take Jesus' yoke upon us and discover His peace?